Is it true Chief Executive Michael Nicholson and Finance Director Chris Mackay flew by private jet, no less, to Mallorca, where Brendan Rodgers owns a home? They were over there on Saturday, apparently, Simon. Maybe Brendan coming back to Celtic. Can you see that? Would that be a good move for Celtic? For Peter Lowell and the people at the top of the football club, if this is true?
I always find it strange there's a necessity for these things to find their way in the public domain at this stage. So whoever's put it there has a reason for putting it there. Brendan Rodgers did a great job at Celtic, and in recent times hasn't done a great job. Depends what Brendan Rodgers you're getting. For him, if he goes back to Celtic, I'm not sure what it says about where his career's going. With due respect to Celtic,
yeah, of course. I mean,
but Celtic will get a capable manager.
I'm not sure, Jim. I'm not sure he'll go back there because what he achieved. I mean, he was quite. I mean, it was incredible what he achieved, and he actually did do it overall. Leicester did a good job. He wouldn't have wanted to put him into the Championship, which was what happened ultimately. But fifth place twice and an FA Cup win was, in their history, Jim, is quite remarkable to win the FA Cup. Of course, they won the Premier League not so long ago. But I don't see him going back. I think it's flattering for him that they should turn up in numbers to see him like that. But probably he's looking forward to come back to the Premier League.
You see, there's one of a few...
well, you don't just... Surely to Christ, if you don't want a job, you don't need someone to get on a private jet and to come over, fly over to see you. You'd say... No, thank you. I don't want the job, so don't bother getting on a jet.
Well, there's one of a few messages from some Celtic fans coming in on this very topic. This, Peter, some people have short memories here. Player revolt, tedious football, European humiliation, and a man declaring his love while working his ticket out of the club. I mean, some Celtic fans, they didn't like the way he left, Simon. They liked the way he arrived, but they didn't like the way he left.
I would be surprised if that was a route that either party wanted to go down. Because if you've got this background noise that Celtic fans are disillusioned with him or disappointed with the way he left, and then you've got a situation where Brendan Rodgers, because obviously when we're judging people that run football stadiums, they must be judged by their last event. When we're judging football managers, we must go back 3 years and remember they won the FA Cup. He was responsible, in part, for this team getting relegated. So the most important thing to remember about Brendan Rodgers right now is his current version. Now, whether that's good enough for Celtic, whether Celtic want to bring it back into the equation, I would be surprised. I don't think it's a fit that works.
I would be surprised. I thought
we'd heard it being ruled out last week. But again, if these guys have got on a private jet, I mean, no one is that narcissistic that they want someone to get on a private jet to fly over to their house so they can tell them what they could have already told them on a phone to their face.
Come and convince me. Come and tell me face to face. It might be more difficult to say, or easier for him to say, Brendan, to say no face to face. It may be that you don't know. It's relentless. Maybe they keep on asking for him. So he said, "Just okay, let's talk. Let's talk. Come over. Let's sit with our feet in the sand and have a chat."
Could
on
be.
The beach.
Okay, could be. I mean,
sure that's what happened.
Who knows? But at the end of the day, man, I'm not entirely sure it'd be the most.
No, I agree with that. I think he'd be looking for something else because he's a very ambitious manager. And there was a time we felt maybe he was going to leave Leicester himself. We were talking about all the players leaving there. There's a lot went wrong at Leicester. Their eagerness to try to hold on to too many of their players. I think Tielemans has now just gone to Villa this weekend. Another one. So many players' contracts are allowed to run out. Brendan was looking for change, and they didn't have the financial resources to support him at that point. So he was wrong in actually making that claim that he wanted to make wholesale changes when the club weren't able to support him. It went very wrong for them. No one expected them to get relegated.
No one indeed. I mean,
they did.
You were on the other day, Simon, with Darren McElhenney. There's a man who goes back and back and back for the same fella in Darren Ferguson.
Yeah.
It's been done before in football. I'm not sure you did it in your time at Palace, but it's been done before in football. And certainly, if you're looking for somebody to get a hold of things and keep the Celtic momentum going, Brendan would be your man. He knows the club inside out.
I mean, the Darren McElhenney example is a very strange one because he sits in the studio telling us that Darren Ferguson doesn't want to manage in the Championship. Yet in the same breath tells us that Darren Ferguson will get you out of League One. And where does that leave you constantly? Trying to get out of League One with no ambitions to be there with a manager that doesn't want to manage in the Championship for you or in that particular incarnation. So it's a strange one. I don't think there's a benefit more often than not to going back. I think there's a need to move on. And the reasons why you let someone go will still be the reasons. Now, people can change and people can learn from their experiences and people can evolve, but they tend to evolve by going into different environments. If they go back into the same environment, then they'll go back into the same sort of mode of operation unless that environment has dramatically changed.
Yeah.
And that would mean a new owner.
We left a good behind, Brendan, a very good environment, didn't he? Neil Lennon came in to finish off the job. So he's going back into a pretty well a situation he left. I just feel that maybe there are other things on the radar for him. Maybe does he want that? Does he want to?
It'll be interesting to see what is on offer for him, because I don't think on the basis of the last 12 months he'll be a much sought after commodity amongst the higher echelon of Premier League football clubs. There was an argument that perhaps he could have been talked to about Tottenham in regards to Tottenham. I don't think that was ever a starter. I don't think he's going to get a look at Arsenal anytime soon. So where are we talking about? We're talking about, at very, very best for Brendan Rodgers, a sideways move from what Leicester were, not what he helped turn them into.
Yeah, you think Brendan will have his sights set, Martin, and would be right to have his sights set on a Premier League return?
Well, maybe he goes abroad. Maybe he looks further afield. Maybe he wants to equip himself with more knowledge, more growth, develop a little bit, and come back maybe later on to the Championship or the Premier League. But at the moment, he's probably still hurting, Jim, and coming to terms with what happened. He's a proud man, isn't he? He's been successful until this point. And he wants to work away, find a solution. But I think eventually he'll recharge his batteries. Kasper Schmeichel was saying, although he pretty well got rid of him out of the club, and I was kind of against that. I felt he was like pulling the plug out of the bath when Kasper Schmeichel was allowed to leave. And you could see the leadership qualities that he had when he was on Sky. But he said, one of the best managers I've ever worked with. He didn't say that lightly. And I'm pretty well sure he's a good judge. So we'll see him again, Jim.
You're rolling your eyes that Brendan's pride is taking a knock. Still, and he's still hurting.
I think it was a mutual consent situation. I think they both looked at one another. I think Brendan Rodgers didn't fancy it anymore. They didn't fancy Brendan Rodgers as a result of him not fancying it. So they all decided not to fancy it together. And of course, football is one of those spaces where they have brass necks. They'll come back and do another job in another space. But I just think that Brendan Rodgers, going back to Celtic, would create more challenges than it would create solutions, because the fan base would have to be overcome. They've got a good galvanised fan base. They're very disappointed to lose their manager. Let's put them all together, won things. Of course, the winning of things always makes people happier and makes people diminish maybe the journey to get there. But I would be surprised. Economically, it doesn't seem to be a fit in terms of the salary that he would demand and command, where he thinks he should be managing, because he went to Scotland to come back to the Premier League. Obviously, because that's what he did.
Of course.
So then it's a very strange dynamic to say, I tell you what, I'll skulk back to Scotland with my tail between my legs to give myself another opportunity to come back to the league that I actually want to manage him.
I am surprised at it. I must admit, I'm surprised at it. That A, Celtic would be looking to Brendan, and B, that Brendan would take it as well. I must admit, Martin.
Well, let's see how the beach
gone.
party goes, and whether or not they'll come to some sort of agreement for him to go back to Celtic.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it. I spoke to the Celtic chairman, Peter Lowell, last week, and he said that he will have a conversation with me on that topic this week, so we'll see where that takes us.